Hello all, this is Dr. Rajni Sharma, Associate Professor English. I deliver this lecture for Gyandoot 2.0, an initiative taken by Commissionerate College Education, Rajasthan, Jaipur. My topic today is of studies, the essay written by great essayist Francis Bacon. My objective is to enable the students to understand this essay in a better way. First, we shall have an introduction to Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon was born on January 22, 1561, in London. He was son of Sir Nicholas Bacon, the Lord Keeper of the Great Seal. He had a keen interest in studies since his tender age, and he attended Trinity College and Gray's Inn. He entered Parliament in 1584, 1586, 1589 and 1593 respectively. First edition of his essay was published in 1597. He was an English philosopher, statesman, scientist and essayist. He is best known for his observation and experimentation theory. He is known as the father of English essay. The impact of Renaissance is evident in his writings. His essays are called Counsels of Civil and Moral. This great essayist passed away in 1626 during an experiment on process of refrigeration. Dear students, this great essayist was first interested in politics, but he was livid with charges of bribery and corruption. As a result, he was imprisoned, but soon he was released. After that, he spent rest of his life in literary pursuits rather than going to politics. The major works of Bacon are The Advancement of Learning, written in 1605, History of Henry VII, written in 1622, his essays written in many editions, 1597, 1612 and 1625. The New Atlantis, which is in two editions, 1622 and 1626. Magna Instauratio, 1623 to 27, and Novum Arcanum. The essay of studies is presenting Bacon's views on studies. In this essay, Bacon examines the uses, effects, and purpose of studies. He maintains that if studies are added to experience, they produce good results and overcome imperfections in man. Bacon teaches how to read different types of books. He opines that some books must be read quickly, some to be read with concentration, and some to be read in parts. He also throws light on varied effects of various types of studies. First, we shall have explanation of some important parts of the essay. After that, we shall discuss the important characteristics of this essay. The opening lines of this essay are: studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. Their chief use for delight is in privateness and retiring, for ornament is in discourse, and for ability is in the judgment and disposition of business. For expert men can execute and perhaps judge of particulars one by one, but the general counsels and the plots and marshalling of affairs come best from those that are learned. Studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. There are three purposes of studies. They provide you delight. They please you when you get pleasure by reading. The next motive of studies is ornament. They provide you ornament, decoration, because you are refined after having studies. And they enable you. They provide you ability. They make you able to judge the matters as well as to have a livelihood. Their chief use for delight is in privateness and retiring. They provide you delight when you are alone when you are retiring from the company of other people, because when other people are sitting with you, you can't get as much pleasure as when you are alone. For ornament is in discourse. Studies provide you ornament, decoration when you are talking with other people, because studies refine you, they provide you knowledge, and that knowledge is reflected when you are talking to other people. And ability is in the judgment and disposition of business. When you are handling business, when you are working, then you are able to have judgment in a better way. Expert men can execute and judge of particulars one by one, but general counsels, plots, and marshalling of affairs are coming best from those who are learned. In this way, in general counsels, in marshalling of affairs, and in plots, you are having better handling if you are learned, if you have good studies. To spend too much time in studies is sloth. To use them too much for ornament is affectation. To make judgment wholly by their rules is the humor of a scholar. They perfect nature and are perfected by experience. For natural plants are like natural abilities are like natural plants that need pruning by study. The studies themselves to give forth directions too much at large, except they be bounded in by experience. Here, Bacon is cautioning the readers to read, to know the skill how to read. Because if you are spending too much time in studies, it shows you are lazy. You don't want, because other activities are also necessary in your life. And if you are using them too much for ornament, if all the time you are talking of studies only, then it seems to be affectation. It is artificiality, as if you are not normal and you are having artificial way to let others know that you are learned. And to make judgment wholly by their rules. If you are totally depending yourself on studies and all your judgments are taken by the books of rules of books only, and you don't apply your worldly wisdom, then you are a cynic person. That seems to be the whim of a scholar. They perfect nature. Studies, books perfect your nature, but they are perfected by experience. Worldly wisdom, worldly experience is also very necessary. Alone, single books can't do anything. For natural abilities are like natural plants. Here, Bacon is he is comparing our natural abilities like natural plants, just as a gardener is pruning the plants, pruning unnecessary growth of the plants. In the same way, books are pruning you. They remove the defects from your character, from your nature, and they make you perfect so that you are more healthy. By study only, your pruning is possible. Studies themselves to give forth direction too much at last. They give direction, but they are bounded by experience only. It depends on you how to use them. Your experience, if you are experienced, if you are applying worldly wisdom, then only you can make take maximum benefit from books. Crafty men condemn studies, simple men admire them, wise men use them, for they teach not their own use, but that is a wisdom without them, above them, won by observation. Read not to contradict and confute, nor to believe and take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider. Crafty men, clever men condemn studies. Those people who are clever, they abuse studies, they criticize studies. Simple men admire them, and simple men are only admiring them. They do not take, they don't adopt, they do not make use of studies in their practical life. But wise men make maximum use of studies, for they teach not their own use. Studies are not teaching how to use them. That is a wisdom outside them, without them, above them, and it is to be won by observation. You have to be worldly wise how to use studies. Neither crafty men make maximum use of studies nor simple men. Wise men only make maximum use of studies. They are maximum benefited by studies. Read not to contradict and confute. If you are learned, if you are studied, if you are educated, then don't confute, don't argue with others. Not to believe and take for granted, and not to believe blindly everything which is written in books. But you have to not to talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider. You have to make judgments, you have to consider, because in books also everything may not be right. You have to apply your worldly wisdom. You have to be practical in applying knowledge in your day to day life. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. That is, some books are to be read only in parts, others to be read but not curiously, but few to be read wholly with diligence and attention. Here, Bacon is telling us, cautioning us to read different books in different ways. Some books are here. He is using a metaphor of diet, of meal. For example, in your meal there are various type of eatables. Some eatables you taste only. Some eatables you eat swallow, and you don't. For example, pills you swallow, and some are to be chewed and digested. In the same way, some books are to be tasted. Just as you taste something, some books are to be read only in parts. Others to be swallowed. Swallowed, you have to read them rapidly. And some are to be chewed and digested. You have to read that very slowly and very attentively. And some books are to be read in parts, others to be read but not curiously, but some are to be read wholly with diligence and attention. Reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, writing an exact man. Bacon's Bacon's essay has many, his style is aphoristic, and many of his sentences have become quotes. They are quoted, they have become maxims, and this line also. Reading makes a full man. After reading, you are a complete man. Conference a ready man. And conference, conversation with other people, makes you a ready man. You are ready to argue, you are ready. So that it makes you talented to be very wise, and writing makes you exact man. So therefore, if a man writes little, he needs to have a great memory. If you don't write, then you have to have a great memory, because without writing you can't learn anything. Writing imprints the thing in the recess of your mind. So writing is very necessary. But if you have a great memory, then it can be compensated. If he confer little, if he has conference with other people little, then he must have a presence of wit. And if he is reading little, he need have much cunning. If he is not reading much, then he should be clever, so that others should not know that he is not in the habit of reading too much. Histories make men wise, poets witty, mathematics subtle, natural philosophy deep, moral grave, logic and rhetoric able to contend. He is telling different type of studies and what are the effects of different studies on the nature of man. History is making men wise, because there is a proverb, history repeats itself. So history is giving you lesson that you should do this and you should not do that, so that you may avoid some harm. Poets are making a person witty. Mathematics is making a person subtle. He is able to concentrate after practicing mathematics. And natural philosophy is making a person deep. He is sober. Moral grave, logic and rhetoric is enabling a person to contend. Abiant studia in Morris. Nay, there is no stand or impediment in wit, but may not be wrought by fit studies, like the disease of the body. May have appropriate exercises. Bowling is good for stone and jeans, shooting for lungs and breast, gentle walking for stomach, riding for the head, and the like. Ambient studia in Morris. It means study passes into and influences the manners of a person. There is no stand, stand. There is no impediment in the wit which may not be wrought out by fit studies. Fit study is curing your different impediments in your mind, just as disease of body is cured by appropriate exercise. Here also Bacon is making use of simile. There is comparison between exercise of body and exercise of mind. Exercise of mind depends on reading different subjects, and exercise of body is depending on it is curing one of different kind of ailments, physical ailments, just as mental diseases are cured by suitable study. Bowling is good for stone and greens in kidney. Shooting is good for lungs and breast. Gentle walking for stomach, and riding for the head. In the same way, different mental diseases are cured by appropriate study. If a man's wit be wandering, let him study mathematics. If a person is unable to concentrate his mind, then he should study mathematics, because mathematics requires total concentration, otherwise you will have a wrong answer. And in demonstrations, if his wit be called away, never so little, he must begin again, because while solving the problems, sums, if his mind is not concentrating, then he has to begin again, because his answer won't be right. If his wit be not apt to distinguish or find differences, if a person is having problem to differentiate between two things, let him study the schoolmen, medieval philosophers, for they are simini sectoris. Simini sectoris, they are expert in analysis. The exact answer of this proverb is hair splitters. If he be not apt to beat our matters, call up one thing to prove the illustrate another, let him study the lawyer's cases. If he is not able to prove anything by giving examples, then he should study law. So, every defect of the mind may have special recipe. Now, what kind of essay this is? This is a formal essay in which there is intellectual discussion. It is serious in tone and didactic in nature. This essay is formal because it is providing the information about studies, and there is intellectual discussion because Bacon is giving arguments, he is giving examples to prove his point, and the discussion is totally intellectual. It is serious in tone because Bacon is telling different type of studies, and he is telling how to read different type of studies and how to cure the problems in one's mind by reading different subjects, because studies not only enable a person to solve day-to-day problems, to bring change in his personality, but they also cure mental illness. So the essay is serious in tone and it is didactic in nature. Bacon is using the method of comparison. He is comparing two things to prove his point. And for example, for natural abilities are like natural plants, they need pruning by study. So to prune natural abilities, one has to study, just as plants are pruned to make beautiful for decoration. Distilled books are like common distilled water, flashy things. Bacon says that distilled books, the books which are in abridged forms, they are like distilled water, flashy things, because they are tasteless. Just as distilled water, water being distilled, it loses its natural taste. It is tasteless. In the same way, the original books are having a real beauty, and if the books are in abridged form, they lose the taste, the natural idea. There is parallelism also. Bacon is using parallelism to prove his point because many sentences are going parallel. Read not to contradict and confute, nor to believe and take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider. Here, three sentences are going parallel. Read not to contradict and confute, nor to believe or take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse. In this way, in this sentence, there are three parallel sentences to prove the point that man should use the proper use of studies, and that is to weigh and consider. To prove this point, he is making other parallel statements also. And there are all the essays full of parallelism. For example, this sentence, some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, some to be chewed and digested. And this is also having many parallel sentences. Sentences are going parallel to prove the point. There is illustration also. Bacon is using the method of illustration also. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, some few to be chewed and digested. That is, some books are to be read in parts, others to be read but not curiously, and some few to be read wholly with diligence and attention. So, Bacon is making a statement, general statement, then he is illustrating and he is giving example how that. First, he is giving the example of meal, that some books like meal are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some to be chewed and digested. Then he is making it clear. He is illustrating his point by elaborating his idea. Some books are to be read in parts, others to be read not curiously, and some to be read wholly with diligence and attention. Bacon has used many figures of speech, and mostly simile metaphor is there. And he has used simile 2 or 3 times. For natural abilities are like natural plants that need pruning by study. Here he is comparing natural abilities to natural plants, just as plants need pruning. In the same way, studies are like a gardener which prunes the natural abilities in a man. Study is refining a person's nature. Distilled books are like common distilled waters, flashy things. He again comparing distilled books, abridged forms of books like common distilled water, which is flashy only. In show it is shining, but it is tasteless. So there is use of simile. He also uses Lilotis. To spend too much time in studies is sloth. To use them too much for ornament is affectation. To make judgment wholly by their rules is the humor of a scholar. So spend too much time in what is Lilotis? It is an understatement in which any positive thing is expressed by negative in opposition. So here he says to spend too much time in studies is sloth, and to use them too much time for ornament is affectation. To make judgment wholly by their rules is humor of a scholar. So here Bacon is using Lilotis to make to he is presenting both the things. He is presenting positive things, and that is expressed by negative things in opposition. Here sloth is negative, so he says if you spend too much time in study it becomes sloth. So positive statement, positive is expressed by negative in opposition. So by telling that some negative happens, by giving some negative idea, he is expressing positive. To use them too much for ornament is affectation. Here affectation is also negative. So he shows that if you are using too much for use of studies for ornament, for show, then it becomes affectation, artificiality. And if you are totally dependent on them for their rules, that it is the humor, the whim of a scholar. Bacon is using metaphor also. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. Here is metaphor because reading books is regarded as taking meal. Bacon is using archaic words in the essay. Nay, stoned, maketh, doth. These are the archaic words, old words which are obsolete, which are no more in use. These words were in fashion in the time of Bacon. Nay means no, stoned means stand or hindrance, maketh means makes, and doth means does. There are some Latin phrases, Abian studia in Morris, simini sectoris. Abian studia in Morris means study passes into and influence the manners of a person, and simini sectoris means expert in analysis, that is, hair splitters. Now we are coming to the style of Bacon. Bacon uses aphoristic style. Aphoristic style is that style in which one sentence can be elaborated to many pages, and the same is with in the case of Bacon. He is making pithy sentences, and these sentences can be enlarged into as many words as you desire, because in a few words he has ability to tell more. He is presenting intellectual wisdom, pragmatic approach, practical knowledge, and graceful style. There is use of metaphor, simile, images to illustrate the argument. There is use of short and pithy sentences as well as large sentences also, and there are running parallel sentences to emphasize his point, to just concentrate the mind of the readers, and the essay is full of aphorism as is told by in aphoristic style. Thank you students for being with me.